How did we end up here, y'all? Diddy is being sued yet again, not only by one extra person, but by 120 extra people are planning on suing Diddy. We're not going to go into the cases where the 120 people are suing him, but we are going to talk about the most recently filed. The case as of yesterday is not fully open yet, but I still do have the complaint. It's just a matter of if the case is going to go forward or not. So Diddy is in big trouble. We're going to talk about why and how he allegedly impregnated a woman while dating Young Miami. Yeah, dating his girl. And let me tell you, his girl, Young Miami, allegedly went to bat for him. And then we have the update on Baby Reindeer. You know, we have been waiting to see if the court is going to dismiss her claims as frivolous. You know, the Netflix show, Baby Reindeer, where Richard Gadd played himself, but gave himself a different name. And then he had a stalker. And then this lady came out and said she's the real stalker. And now she's suing him for defamation. Yeah, there's an update on that case. And we thought it was going to be dismissed, but it's actually not going to be dismissed in its entirety. Part of it did get dismissed, and we're going to jump into the reasons why there. We are back for another live stream. Y'all, if you are here watching live, make sure you go ahead and drop in the chat and say hello so that I can say hello. And if you're watching on the replay, make sure to check down in the description box because we have timestamps so that you can jump to your favorite part. Y'all, this live stream is about to be pretty juicy with like the court snapbacks. The court is like, you missed the mark. And not only are they saying that the plaintiff missed the mark on things, but they're also saying that the defense, Netflix, also missed the marks on things. So there's some clapbacks in that order from the court. And then we have these new spicy allegations against Diddy again. And again, like I said, 120 other people are planning on suing him as well. And these two law firms are banding together in order to get Diddy justice for these 120 witnesses. Now, are all of these people going to testify in the criminal trial? I have no idea, but they definitely will have their work cut out for them in getting the most relevant witnesses in order to get Diddy convicted. Like, is this what the prosecution was looking for? Were they looking to get as many people as possible suing him so that the prosecution will have as many people as possible available to testify against Diddy to make sure that they're going to get a conviction and to make sure that he's going to go away for a long, long time? So lots of crazy stuff today. Again, like I said, if you're in the live stream, go ahead and drop a chat so that we can say hello. And again, if you're watching on the replay, check out the timestamp so that you can jump to your favorite part of the live stream. We're going to have Bossy B bring us in. And right before we do that, we are going to set the like goal for the live stream. We have 15 people watching live and we have 11 likes so far. So if you haven't hit the like button, please do. It does help us out in the algorithm, helps us get more friends. And we are on the journey of growing the BriHive channel. Okay, y'all. So make sure y'all hit the like button. We will go ahead and make the like goal for the stream 50 likes. So if we hit the 50 likes, we'll get our like goal animation and we would be, accomplished for the live stream. So let's have Bossy B bring us in so that we can say hello to the chat and then jump right into these juicy cases. All right, y'all, and just to let you know, Kimmy is going to be a little bit late, so I may not be able to start all of the relevant chats, but we are at the hello stage anyway. So we got Leela Wells. Hello and welcome into the live stream. Nice to have you back tonight. Phoenix Waller saying, hey, yo, hello and welcome back in. Nice to have you in tonight. Stargazer Kawaii saying good evening. Hello and good evening. Welcome back. Welcome back. Kaylee H says good evening. BriHive. Hello and welcome back into the live stream. Nice to see you tonight. We got Tanya D, also known as Destined to Be, a member and moderator of the channel, saying, hey, BriHive, sending a wave. Hello and welcome back. Nice to have you in. I did send you a message on Discord. I don't know if you were able to see it, but I covered I didn't cover it. I read the Miley Cyrus lawsuit, and it's not actually Bruno Mars suing Miley Cyrus. So, and it's also really not that juicy. It's like a person that bought rights from a different writer suing them, trying to get some money off of flowers. I don't know why. I don't know if we're going to cover it on the channel, but definitely if you want to chat about it, we can. And then I might do it a little bit later on, but right now we got some other juicy things going on. So I did send you that message over on Discord. I know it's been like 2 weeks since you asked me to cover the case. Destined to Be also reminding us to hit the like button on your way in. Yes, of course. Thank you for the reminder, Tanya D. We got Mr. Howard. Hello and welcome in. Nice to have you back in the live stream. We got Chelsea B saying, hey, everyone. Hello and welcome back into the live stream. We got like all the return viewers, all the return subscribers, the BriHive supporters that we love here. Okay, we got Stargazer Kawaii says, did you see the allegations against Jay-Z and Beyonce? Not yet. Like I've seen some things pop up randomly about them, but I haven't seen anything come out in like the court records, and I haven't really seen anything really dive into it. It's just like a speculation, throw their name here, a speculation, throw their name there, but nothing really concrete. So I try not to go down those rabbit holes, but if you want to drop it in the comments, feel free to do so. We got Just Me MD, welcome back, saying greetings, Earthlings, buzzing in, sending love from Texas. Hello and welcome back in. Greetings to you as well. We got Kimmy Locker saying, hello, BriHive. Hello, Kimmy. Welcome back into the live stream. I don't see you backstage yet, but hopefully you'll be here soon. We got Kelly H says, I did not, to Stargazer Kawaii about the Beyonce and Jay-Z allegations. We got Deacon Fatal, another member and moderator of the channel. Welcome back. Nice to have you in the live stream. Let's see what Deacon Fatal has to say today, because these allegations are crazy. I know Deacon Fatal does not have time to worry about rich folks' problems, but that's exactly what we're doing. We're going to worry about Diddy's rich problems, and then we're going to jump into Fiona Harvey's. I don't know if she's really rich like that, but Netflix is definitely rich, and we're going to jump into their problems as to why they can't seem to get this lawsuit dismissed from this alleged stalker. Like, are we going to claim that Fiona's stalking Netflix now? I don't think we can. Allegedly, please don't come after me. Okay, so we got Kimmy Locker says, I'm like 5 minutes away. No problem. Take your time. We got Chelsea B saying the Stargazer Kawaii. I went down a rabbit hole with them in those tweets Sia wrote. Okay, so there's some tweets coming out. Okay, I haven't seen the tweets. I have not seen the tweets. We got Deacon Fatal saying, freaking Garth Brooks at 2. What? Garth Brooks at 2? I don't know what that means. You might be referring to someone. I have no idea who that is. Stargazer Corey says, I saw Jaguar Wright on Piers Morgan talking about this. You know, GB coming out with all the allegations. We got Deacon Fatal saying that he has been teeing too much for me. I have not been in it, y'all. I have not been in it. I've been too busy trying to find the documents for y'all, so I have no idea. We got Honey saying, hi. Good evening all. Hello and welcome in. Nice to have you in the live stream. We got Deacon Fatal saying hi to Honey. Nero Sparkly, love that name, saying hello and dropping a wave. Hello and welcome in. We got Deacon Fatal saying hi to Nero Sparkly. We got Deacon Fiddle saying, no, I don't. Kelly H says, I'm going to be listening in the background now. Good night, y'all. No problem. Good night. Hopefully these cases don't haunt you too much in your dreams. Thank you for coming into the live stream. We got Kimmy Locker saying Fiona Harvey is trying to be rich like that. Rich like Netflix rich. Yeah, because she's suing for like $200 million in this lawsuit, okay? She is suing for quite a bit. We got Tanya D saying, thanks for listening to Kelly. Yes, of course. We got Deacon Fatal saying Garth Brooks got sued too. Oh, I did not see that. It was that like today or like within the last couple of days, because it might not be that popular as far as the news channels go. We got Tanya D saying, I can't listen to Jaguar for too long. I deal with that all day for work. Stories upon stories, right? Stargazer Kawaii says, I'm trying to keep trust but verifying mine. Yeah. Exactly. I try to wait until like actual documents come out versus like everyone's on the internet saying anything right now because it's a hot topic. So it's hard for me to kind of follow along and go down the rabbit holes because one, I got to bring y'all the actual documents. So that takes time to find. And then two, I don't want to be spreading misinformation on my channel. You know, people already tell me I'm not a real lawyer, but I am. And here we are, right? We got Megan B saying, hi, hello, welcome in. We got Deacon Fatal saying today, I think. Okay, so it's a pretty new. So I'll take a peek at that, but I don't know who Garth Brooks is. I don't know what y'all are going to say about me for not knowing who that is, but I'm sorry, I do not know that man, Keke Palmer, okay? Stargazer Kawaii says, there's been so many horrible abuse stories proven to be true and many false accusations proven not to be. Right, exactly. So we gotta wait. We gotta wait. And with the documents that we're getting, not necessarily saying that everything filed in the complaint is true, but at least there's that litigation privilege behind it, right? We're just looking at documents that are filed with the court, and then the judge has the opportunity to decide whether the allegations are true, or the judge doesn't decide, the jury decides whether the allegations are true or not, at least for the purpose of the case, right? The classic one says, let's see the receipts. That's what we want to do. And we got Nero Sparkly saying, OMG, I feel old. Okay. See, that's what I'm saying. When I say I don't know people, that's what it comes. Bring it off the internet. You're not old enough to be on the internet yet. That always happens. It always happens. Okay, y'all, we're going to jump right into the spiciness of the Diddy lawsuit. And I did see, I thought I saw something come in from Kimmy. She said she had a folder for me with the banners, but I don't see them. I don't see them, Kimmy. I don't see the folder. There's wow. I did not know this was a thing. I just unlocked a new part of my brain as far as StreamYard goes. So yes, shout out to Kimmy for the banners. I did not know this was a thing. I really didn't. We're going to jump into Diddy's new lawsuit. That's what we're going to do. Thank you, Kimmy, for bringing the banners for us. Let me have Bossy B bring us in. But right before that, let's check our like goal. We're at 21 likes, but there's 28 people watching live. So if you haven't hit the like button, please do. Like I said, it helps us out in the algorithm, helps us get more friends for the people in the live. Our like goal for the stream is 50. But it's going up kind of fast. We might have to raise the like goal, or maybe we'll have a double like goal hit this live stream. But also for the people watching on the replay, also make sure you hit the like button because it helps us out, right? It helps us. And we are on the journey of growing this channel, okay? So let's go ahead and have Bossy B bring us into the mess that we're calling Diddy's new lawsuit. Okay, y'all. Diddy can't seem to stay out the spotlight. I know there was a time in the 1990s where he wanted to be the top dog. He wanted everyone to be talking about him. He wanted to be on every magazine, every newspaper, but I bet you he never thought that he would be on every YouTube channel covering all these lawsuits being brought against him. As I mentioned in the beginning of the stream, there are 120 lawsuits at minimum gearing up against him. 2 law firms taking on all of these cases with allegations against Diddy. Not only is that going on, we have another lawsuit that is in the process of being filed. That's not a part of the 120 lawsuits, but a new lawsuit nonetheless that was filed late last week, but for whatever reason hasn't been accepted by the court yet. So this one could go forward. It could not go forward. Maybe there's something wrong with the filing. I don't know. But we do have what they filed with the court, and we're just waiting for it to become a full case with the court. So Diddy being sued again by a woman who is claiming he impregnated her over a course of about 4 years of them hooking up. He impregnated her once, and your girl, Young Miami, came at my girl all spicy, all crazy, telling her to get rid of the baby, like to, terminate, send it off into a spaceship. I don't know what she wanted to do, but she wanted this lady to get rid of this baby. Okay. So let's go ahead and jump into the lawsuit. If y'all have heard about this lawsuit, if y'all read this lawsuit, let me know in the chat or down below in the comments if you are on the replay. Remember, replay crew, there are timestamps down below, so for you to jump around. But here we go. Let's see. I think I should know, but you didn't share it all the way. Okay, now we're sharing it. We have Jane Doe. Excuse me. An anonymous woman suing Sean Diddy Combs along with a bunch of his other entities. And as I was reading this one, y'all, I'm like, I kind of feel bad for the businesses. Although I know the businesses are literally ran by Diddy, I kind of feel bad for the businesses because it's like kind of like, where do I come into play here? Like, I am an entity for music and y'all keep naming me, but I know they're saying that he's doing this under the guise of being the president of Bad Boy and owning a Bad Boy and the Combs Enterprises and all the things. But I'm like, why do y'all keep naming businesses for SA allegations? Okay. Now, if they conned you out of money, sure, yes, name the businesses. But I just don't see how they're going to get it to stick on the SA allegations. Are you trying to pierce the corporate veil? They're probably trying to pierce the corporate veil. But again, I think this is more of an individual crime, individual liability here. But we will see what their is basis is for adding the allegations against the companies. I don't think the allegations against the companies are too strong. Okay, but that's just my opinion. So don't mind me. All right. So Jane Doe, anonymous person suing Diddy. As we know, Diddy is already being not sued. He has criminal charges brought against him in the state of New York for his allegations or for his crimes, alleged crimes against Cassie is the main ones that are being listed. But we have a bunch of people coming out also saying he did the same or a similar thing to them. So let's start off with how she introduces the case. She says, defendant Sean Combs is a music producer and business mogul with residences in New York, Los Angeles, Miami, and other locations, who currently is the subject of multiple lawsuits. I think he has like 17 at this point pending, and then 120 lawsuits coming. So he is a subject of multiple lawsuits as well as a criminal investigation over his, among other crimes, abuse, assault, coercion, and intimidation of women, including the plaintiff, which has occurred over many years involving numerous victims, which also were funded, facilitated, and perpetrated by his associates, employees, and various companies. Okay, now that makes sense. He's basically flying you out in the name of Bad Boy Entertainment. Bad Boy Entertainment should also be sued. Why are we also suing Bad Boy in addition to Sean Diddy Combs? Because Sean Diddy Combs owns Bad Boy. He owns Combs Enterprises. He owns Bad Boy Records, right? And if Diddy doesn't have any money in his pockets, these plaintiffs are hoping that he has some money in his company's pockets. What are we doing? We're going for the deep pockets to try to get the most amount of money as possible. So yes, Diddy is rich. Yes, Diddy has money, but does most of Diddy's wealth come from his businesses? Probably. So who else are we going to go after? The businesses, especially if you're flying her out on the Bad Boy credit card. Okay, I see where people are coming for. I see where people are coming from there. They're aiding and abetting. The business is aiding and abetting Diddy to commit these crimes, alleged crimes against people. And also they're funding it, right? They're funding it, and we're piercing the corporate veil at that point. So Jane Doe, the plaintiff, is a business owner, entrepreneur, and model who resides in the state of Florida. They go on to detail the parties. I am going to go ahead and talk about Jane Doe a little bit because she's a new character. We don't know her. We still don't even know who she is identity-wise. My guess would be that Diddy would be able to identify her from the allegations, but eventually she's going to have to disclose who she is in order for this thing to go to trial. Okay, so we got Jane Doe. Is an adult over the age of 18, but younger than 55. Good to know. Jane Doe brings this complaint under a pseudonym because of the sensitive nature of the allegations being SA. Plaintiff fears embarrassment and further psychological damage if her identity as a victim of SA became public knowledge. Defendant comes upon information and believed resides in California. And then they go over the businesses that he owns and who they are. These are businesses owned by Diddy, right? So let me see, where do I want to go? I'm going to go ahead and jump into the relevant facts of the case. This action is for injuries and damages suffered by plaintiff Jane Doe as a direct and proximate cause of defendant's wrongful conduct began in the fall. This is an action for injuries and damages suffered by plaintiff Jane Doe as a direct and proximate result of the defendant's wrongful conduct they worded this weird. I thought I was reading it weird, but they worded it weird. But anyways, began in fall 2020 and continued to present. Jane Doe first met defendants Combe in the fall of 2020 at an overseas location. Jane Doe was invited on a trip with defendant Combs in which defendants paid for Jane Doe's transportation to and from said overseas location. So he's paying for things. Is this actually the company paying for things? In December 2020, Jane Doe and defendant Combs met again in early 2021. Jane Doe and defendant Combs began seeing each other regularly. Through 2021 and 2022, approximately once per month, defendant Combs and his employees, including but not limited to his chief of staff, Christina Coram. She has been named multiple times in these lawsuits, right? And agents would arrange and pay for James Doe travel to defendant Combs' home in Los Angeles, Miami, New York, and other cities. Jane Doe would also travel with defendant Combs at his request, which defendant Combs and or his employees and agents would arrange, and which was paid for by defendant Combs and or one of his corporate entities. Hence, why this plaintiff is specifically naming the corporate entities. Other cases that we have covered, they haven't really been that clear about why they are naming the entities. She's alleging that the entities are paying for her to make these trips. Jane Doe travel to and with defendant Combs did not happen on her own volition. Defendant Combs and his agents and employees would use coercive and harassing language to compel her to comply. One thing I didn't like about this complaint is that she's very elusive about like what they actually said and did to get her to go. She's just kind of using general language and saying it was coercive and harassing. She does explain a little bit, so let's try to get to that. Defendant Combs and or his agents and employees would send drivers to her home, which is right into it. Drivers to her home to pick her up before she agreed to travel, to the point where Jane Doe did not believe she had a choice. So essentially, he'll be like, hey, come hang out with me. The driver's outside. Come get in the car. And you're like, oh no, I don't want to go. It's okay. Well, I've already spent money to send a car out there. You better come outside or I'm going to pull you out. This is just my interpretation, my speculations of what I think happened, right? The car is outside. If you don't come out, we're going to come up in there and get you. So she's feeling like she doesn't have a choice. Not saying that actually happened, but maybe that's what she kind of feared could happen. And she probably should have explained that a little bit more, but she doesn't in this lawsuit. So defendant Combs and or his agents and employees would send drivers to her home to pick her up before she agreed to travel, to the point where Jane Doe did not believe she had a choice. Defendant Combs and his agents and employees not only used language and tactics to force Jane Doe to act against her will, she was also unwillingly drugged with alcohol and unknown substances. In April 2022, defendant Combs forced Jane Doe to have vaginal intercourse without her consent while she was at his home in Los Angeles. In spring of 2022, plaintiff visited defendant Combs in Miami. On one morning, she woke up and her feet were purple and bruised, and she had a bite mark on her heel. What the heck was going on? And she doesn't remember how these things happened. And this is in the spring of 22. She did not know how she sustained the injuries. In July of 2022, Jane Doe traveled at defendant Combs' command to his Los Angeles home. While in defendant Combs' bathroom, Jane Doe was compelled to ingest an unknown substance. Jane Doe later learned it was or contained the drug ketamine and or other substances, which caused Jane Doe to black out or lose consciousness intermittently throughout the night. Jane Doe did not consent to ingesting ketamine and or other substances. Shortly thereafter, Jane Doe took a pregnancy test, which was positive. This part kind of was odd to me. The placement of it was just like, okay, they made me take drugs. And then shortly after I took a pregnancy test and it was positive. But she doesn't really assert that at that time she felt like he did something to her sexually. It just said she did ketamine. And then shortly thereafter, she took a pregnancy test. So I'm not quite sure if that was like a couple months after this incident or they had sex during that incident. She doesn't really allege that after she took the ketamine. What I'm trying to say is she doesn't really allege that after she took the ketamine, she thinks that she was SA'd. That's in this particular thing. She's saying she was SA'd other times, but she's not specifically saying it after the ketamine incident, if that makes sense. I felt like I over-explained that. But anyways, she had a positive pregnancy test. Carisha Brownlee, also known as Young Miami, guys. She is talking about Young Miami now. Defendant Combs' associate. Not his associate. I thought that was his girlfriend. Carisha, she's calling you an associate? I thought you was his girlfriend. You got all on the internet talking about how he does all these embarrassing things to you sexually, ma'am. Are you a victim too? Jeez Louise. Anyways, Carisha, also known as Young Miami, harassed Jane Doe by repeatedly calling her and telling her to get a termination of the pregnancy. Jane Doe suffered a miscarriage and did not speak to defendants Combs or his team for approximately 3 months. In late 2022, defendant Combs resumed communication with Jane Doe and began compelling her to travel with him and to him. Defendant Combs would harass with Jane Doe through. Why did they write it like that? Defendant Combs would harass with Jane Doe through calls, texts, and third parties until she complied. So he would harass her. At every visit, defendant Combs would make her perform a show for him and would ply her with alcohol and substances until she passed out. She would wake up with bruising and injuries, but with no recollection of how she sustained injuries. This continued until July of 2024. In July of 2024, defendant Combs commanded Jane Doe to come to his home in Miami. When Jane Doe arrived at his Miami home, Combs shoved 2 pills in Jane Doe's mouth. During the July 2024 encounter, Jane Doe tried drinking water, but it tasted strange and it made her feel weird. This has a lot of typos in it. So maybe the court does need to reject it. The next morning, it says the next morning, Jane Doe felt ill and confused and did not remember what happened the night before, and the bedroom was in disarray. Throughout the 4 years, defendant Combs would consistently pressure Jane Doe, adding other men and women into the bedroom, despite Jane Doe being clear that she did not want others involved. Combs would continually prompt Jane Doe into using illicit substances and giving her illicit substances without her knowledge or consent. Combs would make threatening jokes to Jane Doe that caused Jane Doe to fear for her safety if she did not comply with defendant Combs' demands. On occasion, Jane Doe was forced to witness defendant Combs slap and abuse other women. On multiple occasions, Jane Doe became aware that Combs and or his agents or employees were tracking her location and or monitoring her conversations. As Combs would refer to statements made by Jane Doe when he was not present, she began checking her phone after each meeting with defendant Combs. So she's saying that he's tracking her because he knew certain things that he should not have known. But she never really comes out and say that like she found a tracking device on her phone. So I think that's going to be something interesting for her to prove. Like, is she going to bring in a digital forensic person to try to figure out if he was actually tracking her or not? That part will be quite interesting to me. So I would like to see how she's able to prove that he was tracking her. During their time together, Combs would discourage her from working. When Jane Doe would attempt to assert her independence, Combs would instead pay her an allowance, which he used to control her. As she cut back on working, Jane Doe was afraid that she was afraid of what Combs would do if she said no. Combs and his agents, at his request, would record sexual encounters with Jane Doe without her permission. Combs and his employees' agents' actions caused Jane Doe to have anxiety, depression, and fear for her safety. Defendant Combs continues to contact Jane Doe and attempts to control her actions, autonomy, and will restrict her speech through harassment, intimidation, and other tactics. Combs has called Jane Doe to fear for her safety, and this is why plaintiff is requesting to file this action under a pseudonym. Accordingly, Jane Doe has suffered physical abuse, emotional abuse, trauma, injury, psychological damage, financial injury, reputational injury, and damage as a result of defendant's intentional, negligent, and criminal actions. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into the actual causes of action. They are claiming first cause of action is a violation of gender motivated violence under the New York Administration Code. So he committed this crime against her because she was a woman. Not going to go back into everything. It's basically the same allegations that we just went through. And she's saying that she suffered damages through the emotional, physical harm. Second cause of action is SA and SH. Y'all can go ahead and read it right here. He was allegedly drugging her and then abusing her. She doesn't really ever say that at the times that he drugged her, she knew that he had also SA'd her, not necessarily saying that he had to, because he is making her allegedly take drugs without her permission and it's causing her to pass out. I think we can all assume that he was also SAing her at that time, because we've read enough of these lawsuits to see that he was SAing people after drugging them. So I don't know if they didn't want to add that in because she didn't really know all the way. But I think that would have been a good way to try to tie things together for them. But right now they're just saying, okay, he SA'd her here and then he drugged her here. They don't really ever tie it together. Not saying that they need to tie it together for this to be a valid claim against him, but I think it would have made her case a little bit stronger. This is my opinion just on how the complaint is written. And then negligent infliction of emotional distress, basically saying following her, tapping her devices, drugging her not knowing what happened to her waking up with bruises was a negligent infliction of emotional distress. She doesn't know what's happening to her and you keep making her pass out. And then we got intentional infliction of emotional distress. Again, he's allegedly purposely drugging her. So, and then purposely SAing her. That is outrageous conduct, right? That would qualify for intentional infliction of emotional distress. And then we got assault under the New York law. Again, he is harming her, causing bruises to her, SAing her against her will. That's assault. And then we got battery and sexual battery under the New York law, similar to the sexual assault or the SA claims up above. Same thing. Him having sex with her against her will, without her permission, all of the things, right? And then we have tampering with consumer product to the second degree. This has to do with him thinking, or with her thinking that he was somehow logging into her phone, sending recording devices with her. She doesn't know exactly how he was finding out what she was saying, but she knows he was finding out what she was saying in some way. Maybe it wasn't a phone, maybe it was a tracker, maybe it was some type of microphone dropped in her bag. She doesn't know what it is, but she's still suing for it, okay? And then New York Penal Code unlawful surveillance in the second degree. Again, same thing, either tapping her phone or putting some type of recording device wherever she is going to monitor what she is saying, making her more afraid for her life and more afraid of what he can do if she decides that she's not going to come around anymore. If he's tracking her and she just says, no, I'm not going to go, he's just going to wait till she leaves her house to try to kidnap her, to try to take her, or whatever it may be, right? And then she demands for a jury trial. So again, she's going to eventually have to tell us who she is if she wants these damages that she is claiming in the lawsuit. She is asking plaintiff demands a judgment against defendant jointly and severally. So basically, if Diddy cannot pay because he is on a criminal trial and some of his money may be seized, because remember, he had forfeiture in the criminal trial. So if the court finds that any of the money that he has was somehow connected to his crimes, he has to forfeit that. He can't use that to pay for his attorney's fees. He can't really use that to pay damages. The court may use it to pay like restitution to victims, but he cannot personally use it. So she's saying jointly and severably, just in case Diddy doesn't have the money, his businesses will have the money, right? Because she's suing both Diddy and the businesses, much like most of the people that are suing Diddy. And then we got compensatory damages. So she wants compensation for what he did to her in a sufficient and fair amount, complete compensation plaintiff for all damages past and future. But she didn't really say what those damages might be. I think she's going to say whatever is determined at trial, but it doesn't really say that here. She wants treble damages, penalties, and attorney's fees. She wants punitive damages to punish him, interest, costs, and disbursement. So if he takes a while to pay her, she wants interest accruing on that. And then entering judgment in favor of plaintiff in a final order against each of the defendants. So she wants this case to be found against Diddy and the multiple entities that she named in the lawsuit as well. So this lady, the lawsuit is tragic. I think we all have a feeling that these things probably did happen to her. The only complaint I have with the complaint is the way that the attorney put it together. And this has nothing to do with her, nothing to do with her allegations. But the way that the attorney put it together, in my opinion, does not fully tie together the actions against her. Like I said, they're claiming SA on occasions when she was awake, but I think her case would have been stronger if they also alleged the SA when she was awoken, like we saw in the Thalia Graves case. She said when she woke up, she was hurting down there, which gave her the sense that he did something to her while she was drugged. All of these lawsuits are coming out saying that he did something to these women while they were drugged. I think the attorney needed to tie in like, okay, well, did he SA you at this time? And if she said yes, and it's how did you know? Because these certain things happen afterwards. I could feel the pain here, or I could feel, my underwear was missing, or whatever it may be. He needed to put in some more information to tie together the SA to get her more compensatory damages and to get her more punitive damages, in my opinion. That's just my opinion with the way it was written. Same thing with the pregnancy. They just say he drugged her one day, and then like a couple weeks later, maybe she took a pregnancy test and it was positive. It didn't really say I wasn't sleeping with anyone else. It wasn't saying I was only sleeping with him unprotected, so he's the only possible father or whatever it is. Because you know what they're going to do? They're going to Laura Owens her. They are going to Laura Owens her on the stand and say, well, how do we know you were even pregnant? Maybe she did go to the doctor after the miscarriage and they cleaned her up because that's what they need to do and everything. But how is she going to prove that she was pregnant by Diddy? Not necessarily saying she needs to prove that in order to succeed in the case, but the way that it's written is kind of accusing him of being a father, but it's not ruling out any other possible fathers. Okay. Still doesn't give Carisha the right, even if Diddy wasn't the father, it doesn't give Carisha the right to tell her to get rid of the baby. But again, I think they needed to tie that pregnancy thing up. It's almost like it was just thrown in there as a shock factor, but you didn't really tie it together and saying, okay, no one else could have possibly been the father, right? So that's my opinion on the lawsuit. I hope that she can get justice. I know she's going to have to come out as Jane, away from Jane Doe, because Diddy's going to say, there's no way I can defend myself in this case, like we've seen in some of his other responses, if I don't know who it is. And then, like I said, a lot of the allegations, the way that they are written, are a little vague. Like they say, okay, they pulled up to her house and told her to come outside and there was already a car waiting for her. But I think that they could have been a little bit more descriptive in other instances, because how many people has he probably done that to? She's going to eventually have to reveal her identity. So that's scary for her, for me. And then maybe they will also try to get her to testify in the criminal trial as well, along with the other 120 people. So anyways, let me know what y'all think in the chats. Kimmy has been starring the relevant chats to the regarding this case, and we're going to go ahead and jump back into it. I saw that a bunch of people came over. I don't know who sent the people, but welcome all the people that came over. We have a like goal for the live stream of 50 likes to hit by the end of the live stream, and we are already at 42 likes with 59 people watching live. So I know there are at least 8 people in the live stream who have not hit the like button already. So if you haven't hit the like button, please do, so you can help us get to our like goal for the live stream. I'm going to have Bossy B bring us in so we can see what the chat has to say about this lawsuit. Newest lawsuit, 120 more to come. And I just can't imagine what else the other lawsuits are going to say. And obviously, we are not going to be able to cover all 120 lawsuits, okay? We are not going to be able to cover that. And with there being 120 lawsuits coming out, a lot of people are not going to get the money that they're asking for, So hopefully people will be okay with just the ruling of the finding that they were assaulted. But this money is getting stretched very, very, very thin at this point. So let's go ahead and see what the chat has to say. We got Stargazer Kawaii saying, but I'm not trust, but verifying with Diddy 1,000 baby oil. I think he's guilty. I absolutely think he's guilty for having 1,000 baby oil bottles. But also, I got to backtrack out of that, because it said 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lube. It didn't really specify if it was 1,000 bottles of baby oil and 1,000 bottles of lube. So I see where you're coming from, but maybe we can give him the benefit of the doubt that it was only 500 bottles of baby oil. And I know I said I'm not going to speculate, but I'm about to speculate. People are saying that they don't think the bottles were filled with baby oil. They think that it was filled with a liquid drug. So let me know if y'all heard about that and whether y'all think that has any oomph to it, whether it could be true, or if you heard anything additional beside me just mentioning that on the stream. We got Deacon Fatal saying Diddy can't dance for Well, were we talking about him dancing? You know, I forget. That comment came in at 7:14 and it's 7:40. I have no idea what I was talking about. Deacon Fatal says, I just want that to be known. Okay, so were we not talking about that and you just throwing that out there? This is Howard says now he wants to hide. Did he hiding? Yeah. I mean, you can't hide at this point. He's in jail. Like every day, someone is going to be serving him. And the fact that those 120 lawsuits are being represented by 2 different law firms, I'm wondering if they're just going to bring one process server and just hand him 120 stacks of complaints and be like, look, we served you. You're easy to find at this point. They're going to serve you in the jail. Every day you're going to have some mail. You think it's fan mail? No, it's a complaint. It's a complaint. It's a complaint. I'm not trying to laugh because these are serious allegations, but I am laughing at Diddy because you are freaking screwed, okay? Maybe his attorneys will accept service on his behalf, but civil attorneys, criminal attorneys are way different. And my thing is like, he got to pay his attorneys. Oh, he may not be able to keep his attorneys. 120 plus the 20 that's already pending. 140 lawsuits against this man, plus criminal charges, plus multiple criminal charges probably going to be filed against him as well. Yeah, he's going to run out of money. He is going to run out of money. MB says, is she represented by the same lawyer who is representing the 120 cases? She is not, to my knowledge. She's not represented. This is an individual, or he works for a firm, and they put his name out there a bunch of times. He's not associated with the other law firms that I can see. Kimmy Walker says, MB, no, tonight's Jane Doe is represented by a different attorney than the one representing the new 120. Yes, exactly. The name is right there, Brie. Why can't you not tell us who's making the chat? I haven't heard about those Jane Does, about the Jane Doe. This one is new. It was filed like very shortly after the Thalia Graves one that was filed last week, but it also is not like all the way on the court docket. It's technically still pending. So I think a lot of people have not really seen it and have not covered it. It took me a while to actually file this complaint because I had to go through a different document system than the regular case system for the New York Supreme Court. So a Spicy Vet Med Geek says, I watch a lawyer you know cover it. Oh, he already covered this one. So yeah, so you got some idea about what's going on there. Spicy Vet Med I'm saying it wrong. Spicy Vet Med Geek, a member of the channel, says, Peter didn't read this. Glad you are. No problem. Well, thank you for joining and thank you for becoming a member of the live stream. We got the classic one saying the businesses aided and profited from these crimes. That is what they're alleging, and also saying that they're the ones paying, right? Diddy is writing this off as a business expense, allegedly, which is wild. That is so wild. We got Deacon Fatal being a member for 27 months. Shout out to you. Y'all know I don't got my little things together. Where's my little applause? There we go. There we go. Shout out to Deacon Fatal. 2 years membering on the BriHive channel, okay? Saying I hope everything he touched goes broke. There's no way he's coming out of this with money. Unless he has some really good lawyers that can prove all of these cases wrong. Like he might win on 1 or 2, right? Like the prisoner that filed against him, he won on that, right? Because I don't think he was actually properly served. But and I think they said something about the statute of limitations on his. No, it was a different reason. It wasn't that he wasn't properly served. I forgot what it was, why his was dismissed, but it wasn't because he wasn't properly served. I do remember looking it up, but I can't remember the exact reason. But yes, I think he will go broke. And thank you again for being a member for 27 months and gifting 5 Boss Attorney Brie memberships. Thank you. Thank you very much for the support, Deacon Fatal. We always appreciate it. We got Deacon Fatal heading for the MVP of the live stream. Shout out to Deacon Fatal. Thank you again. And welcome to all the new Boss Attorney Brie members. Make sure you say thank you to Deacon Fatal if you are now a new member. We got Destined to Be saying welcome new members with the BriHive. Thank you, Tanya D. We got Denny saying, I think it's Diddy's ex, Gina. Her and Young Miami had a Twitter fight not too long ago. Gina also said that she had gotten pregnant by Diddy and accused him of DV in an interview. Now, is she a Miami model? I have no idea who this lady is. I do not follow Diddy. The only reason why I know that Diddy's dating Young Miami or was dating Young Miami is because I listen to the City Girls. And so I would not know Diddy's dating life if he was not dating people like in my age bracket. But okay, I would have no clue what he had going on. Okay, so I don't know who Gina is. I don't keep up with Instagram baddies or anything of that nature. So is she a Miami model as well? Because it might be her. Deacon Fatal says basically it sounds like defendant Combs was acting like his daddy. No, this is against Sean Combs. This is not against one of his kids. I don't know who Diddy's daddy is. So if you got more information, let me know, Deacon Fatal. He thinks he's a mafia boss like his dad was. I think you're confusing. This case is actually against Diddy. I have no idea who Diddy's dad is. So if I'm wrong and you right, please let me know. Deacon Fatal says, okay, this Biden mess. Yeah, waking up with bite marks on your ankles. Like, what are you doing at that point? Okay. Spicy Vet Med got the icky face coming up. Yeah, it's atrocious for sure. The classic one says somebody had a foot fetish. Would that surprise us with the baby oil and the feet biting? Yeah, I don't think the biting is the thing that surprises me. He might have tried to put baby oil on it at the end of everything. Destined to Be says he was biting ankles, I mean heels, right? Yeah. Deacon Fiddle says horse train. Yeah, ketamine. Giving people ketamine is wild. And them not knowing that's what you're giving them, that's wild. Deacon Fiddle says Special K was the street name for it. Well, he is still using it in the bedroom, apparently. Deacon Fiddle says, like in the 90s for the ketamine. Spicy Vet Med Geek says we use ketamine in many animals. I hate it's called the horse tranquilizer, LOL. Also used in human medicine. Yes, it is actually a drug used in human medicine as well, but he definitely should not been giving out doses, especially for people that didn't know they were taking it. And yeah, I'm pretty sure it's an illegal street drug. I don't think you can just be walking around with ketamine, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. Tony P says uncivil raid. So shout out to Uncivil Law, Kurt, for sending in some people to the live stream. Welcome all the uncivilians joining into the BriHive and talking about this crazy mess that we got going on with Diddy. A lot of Diddy stuff going on lately. And I'm not sure if y'all are tired of hearing about Diddy, but he's just into a lot of mess. And I think he's going to continue to be into a lot of mess for the next for the foreseeable future. How about that? The foreseeable future, Diddy is going to be in mess. Okay. Welcome in, Tony B. We got Tweeble saying raid from Uncivil Thursday Thunderdome After Dark edition. Welcome in. Love it. Destined to Be says, what year was this taking place? I'm half listening. This was between 2020 and 2024. So the pregnancy was in 2022, allegedly, right? Kimmy Locker says to Tiny D, according to the complaint, they met in fall of 2020, and the first specific example of assault was in 2022 because they were kind of dating around. I thought she alleged something in 2021, but I could just be mixing things up. I've read so many of these. Complaints. Everything starts to muddle together because he has the same MO, like we talked about before. His MO is absolutely the same for every single one of these. Deacon Fatal says Spicy Vet Man. I don't know why this name gives me a tongue twister. I don't know why, but Spicy Vet Med Geek says, I'm still trying to figure out how many people were present, and I will wait for the state's case on this one. How many people were present as far as like at his parties, or just as far as what? Present where? At his case? Let me know. Spicy Vet Med Geek says to Deacon Fatal, in my opinion, it's going to be a house of cards falling. Or maybe that's my wishful thinking. I've been saying he's sus since after Biggie died. I'm all the way with that. I mean, I was not in my consciousness at that time, but I'm all the way with that conspiracy. Like, if you told me Diddy did it, I would believe it, okay? Because people have said Diddy did it, and I believe it, okay? I do believe it, but we don't have the evidence quite yet. Now, what they are saying with the 120 lawsuits is that there's other big names that are going to come out. And people are basically predicting that The reason why they're kind of doing this press conference first is because some of the big names that don't want their name out there in lawsuits when they're filed are going to reach out to these attorneys, hence why they're keeping it kind of all keeping it all within the team, right? Within these two law firms, so they can know exactly who to contact and try to get their names taken out of those complaints and pay these plaintiffs off. Because like I said, Diddy's going to run out of money. Okay. So if there's other big names that know that they're about to be named in those complaints, they probably are going to want to get ahead of the firing squad that we're going to call these 120 lawsuits, that someone is going to have enough patience and care and precision to go through and pull out all the big names. Because I guarantee you, I will not be doing that. I will not be going through all 120 complaints. But I guarantee you, there will be someone on the internet willing to go through all 120 complaints and pull out all the big names on all the big name allegations. Remember, I think it was the first Diddy lawsuit where they were kind of hinting at different celebrities that were involved in this mess. And so are we going to get complaints where they're hinting at different celebrities, or are we going to get complaints where they're outright being like Jay-Z and Beyonce was there? Don't quote me on that. I'm just being dramatic. That was for dramatic purposes. Okay. Are they going to come straight out and say it, or are they just going to allude to it like the previous lawsuits that we have been seeing? Stargazer Kawaii says, is the court allowed to bankrupt criminals? Why not? Why not? And it's not the court bankrupting them. It's going to be him just running out of money and trying to file for bankruptcy at that point. But can you file for bankruptcy behind bars? I don't know. I'm not a bankruptcy attorney or a criminal attorney. So you're asking the wrong attorney on the internet. Deacon Fatal says, okay, has the state said if the videos that have any audio yet? No, not that I've seen. I have not seen if the videos have any audio, but I would be surprised if they don't. I'm assuming there's something like Ring doorbell cameras, but more advanced in his house. So I would assume that it has video. Oh, and also in this lawsuit that we just covered with the new Jane Doe, as far as her also alleging that he was recording her, does she have evidence of the recording? Like, I know when they put it in there, like, okay, you're doing probably revenge porn against me. But I feel like once you put it in there, you then have to prove that the video exists. And how are you going to prove that the video exists? Or I guess it's opening the door to do discovery to find out if a video does exist. And imagine, with as much as Diddy has been accused of, how many files is he going to have to go through to find these videos? Okay. He's going to have to do some real discovery from behind bars to get these videos to her when she does her discovery. So Deacon Fatal says, okay, has the state said, I think I already got that one. Deacon Fatal says, well, to me as a former Leo, I see Mens Reyes and Actus Reyes. I think so too. I think the lawsuit is legit in my opinion. I just think that the attorney could have tied it together a little bit better. Deacon Fatal says, well, he was like the boss in New York after all of the other artists were gone. Yes, that is true. Deacon Fatal, I see the name, but I just can't read it. Destined to Be says, Bossy B wants me to remind you to hit the like button. Yes, of course. If you have not already hit the like button, please do. I feel like we are at the like goal, but I'm trying to get through the chats here. Spicy Vet Med Geek says, no linear, that's for sure. She was drugged, then I took a pregnancy test, then this, etc. was weird. It doesn't tie together, right? Like, it's not just me. I'm like, okay, why did you take a pregnancy test? Is he the only person you're sleeping with? I think the attorney could have did a much better job of tying things together. Zealous Boo says, but at the same time, wouldn't him being the possible father be enough for some men / people to respond that way? Yes, that is true. That is true. But she's putting it out there of he got me pregnant. So now they're going to try to prove he never got her pregnant, right? And then that goes to her credibility. Where's your doctor's report? Did you do a DNA test of, I don't know if they can even do a DNA test for a miscarriage, right? All of those questions that Laura Owens could not answer, right? So they're going to try to attack her credibility by claiming that she was never pregnant by him. She might have been pregnant, right? But she wasn't pregnant by him. So if she's going to pin a baby on him without any proof, right? We should not believe her on other aspects. Not saying that she had, she technically has to be pregnant at this, or had to have been pregnant at this point, because they're going to try to use that to attack her credibility if she was never pregnant. Deacon Fatal says, I don't know who I can listen to anymore with a good conscience as far as the music goes, right? Stargazer Kawaii says, those baby oil pics, have you seen the pics? I have not seen the pics. I have not seen them. Zoe B says, I suspect Diddy won't have much money left after the criminal case, and I don't think he's worth as much as he's been publicly claimed. I think a lot of his net worth comes from things with debt, like his businesses, the tequila, the recording studios. He was still out there having to make his own albums that I never even heard of. So I'm sure he's in debt with that, right? He had mortgages on the houses. He's trying to sell the houses. His network is going to include all of that stuff. So I agree with you. He probably doesn't have as much money on cash as people are saying that he's worth. Stargazer Kawaii says, I doubt the oil was drugs or we would have seen the charges by now. That is true. That is true. They would have to test them, right? I don't know if they would be that deep into testing them yet. Spicy Vet Med Geek says, I heard that. No idea if it has any truth behind it, though. Yeah, I just heard it. It was something without actual documentation, which I just said, don't speculate, and now I'm speculating. Deacon Fatal says, apparently he is going on a hunger strike because he's used to... He does have a private chef, the jail cook. Oh my gosh. And that's why he wanted to be out on bail, because he wants special treatment. He feels like he can handle all of these cases against him if he's out on bail, and he can have a private chef and he can still do his drugs. Okay. Wasn't he having withdrawals? Deacon Fatal says, poo off, sir. Yeah. Get out of here, Diddy. No one's your friend. Spicy Vet Med Geek says, strike away, sir. Give me like it says to Deacon Fatal. Okay. He can starve. And if he does, do we care? Do we care? No, I don't. Sorry, that's mean. I shouldn't say that, but I don't. Zoe B says, baby oil is one personal product used to smuggle Diddy's preferred and toxic across the border. Customs and Border Protection screens for that frequently. For baby oil? Interesting. Zoe B says, keep in mind the baby oil, the bottles, was collected as evidence. Takes time for a forensic lab to process and test all the evidence. They might have done some presumptive testing, but we are waiting for a full chemical analysis. Exactly. Yep. So I don't think they would be that deep into testing it. I agree, Zoe B. Destined to Be says, if she doesn't know Garth Brooks, would she know Frank Lucas? No. Not on the top of my head. I can look it up. Spicy Vet Med Geek says, you aren't wrong. Vet clinics get robbed regularly for our narcotics. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's illegal for regular people to have ketamine, right? On the streets. Kimmy Lockett says, Diddy's father was allegedly a major drug kingpin and was shot when Diddy was 3. I see. I didn't know that. I'm not of the generation of Diddy, you know? So he was not too popular once I was coming up. I was probably alive when he was popular, but not alive enough to know what was going on. So thank you for that information. Kimmy Lockett says, like you said, the timeline's unclear on this one. It says that she started traveling with him in 2021, and the first allegation of assault was 2022. But it also says throughout 4 years, 2020 to 2024, he pressured her and to add others to the bedroom, prompted her to do drugged her, abused others in front of her, etc. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. And one other thing that I find that's going to be hard for these plaintiffs in these cases, they're going to claim, Diddy is going to claim consent. You consented to that. You like to do drugs. You like to drink. You came to multiple of these parties, so you knew what it was. Even if you didn't know what it was the first time, you kept coming back. They're going to tear these plaintiffs down. And I think a lot of these people are hoping that he just settles with them like he settled with Cassie. That $30 million, that's probably all he had in the pot. Okay, he did not think that all these other people were going to come and sue him. Now, Cassie, she probably had a lot against him. So he was like, let me go ahead and get rid of this because I really was beating that girl, right? Don Richard, she might also get some money out of it. I would say that because she got a lot of stories as well. But these, not to say they're smaller plaintiffs, but these other plaintiffs that are just coming in and saying, well, I went to a party and he did this and he made me do sex and all of these things. I think they're going to tear them down on the stand, okay? They are going to paint them as the bad person. They're going to paint them as hoochie mamas, here for the clout, here for the money, here for the drugs, here for the alcohol. He is for sure going to paint them as that. And that's why I said with her saying that she was pregnant, they are going to then dig into her medical records. And if there's anything negative in the medical records, they are going to bring those up. So it's a tough gig with filing lawsuits because you open the door to a lot of the stuff. You say you have psychological issues. You said that you had a miscarriage. Did you get checked up for that? They're going to dig into all of that. Okay. They're going to dig into your exes. They're going to dig into your family. And they're going to make you look like the bad person. And if this man is allegedly drugging people and potentially actually doing it, you don't think that he's going to embarrass you on the stand? Yeah. And I think a lot of people just think that it's going to settle. Hoping that it's going to settle, but he's not going to have any money to settle, okay? He's not going to have anything left. Stargazer Kawaii says 52 likes. Okay, so we hit our goal. Give me a second to finish up because I'm almost through the chats if Kimmy doesn't start anything else. Phoenix Wallace says, on the pics, I'm more amused by the one with all the toys with the stars. Oh gosh, I'm gonna have to look, but I don't want to look, but I'm gonna have to look. Stargazer Kawaii says, I think the FBI was testing everything for drugs. And they should, because he's always drugging people, allegedly. Kimmy Locker says, at a certain point, I stopped responding to new lawsuits, especially if I had a pending criminal case. And that's what's happening. All these people are trying to get their lawsuits in before the criminal case goes forward so that, one, they could potentially be called as witnesses in the case and maybe their assaults will be also included in the case. But they're also trying to kind of claim their stake to the money that they could receive. Because like I said, it's probably going to go in order. He's not going to respond. He's just going to ask that the court put it on hold pending his criminal charges because he is pleading his Fifth Amendment right on these allegations since there is a criminal charge pending that could implicate him in this stuff. Because although we know that the allegations that the prosecutor is bringing against Diddy mostly has to do with Cassie, they don't really name Cassie. So it could easily bring in these other people that were at these freak offs. She's saying that he involved other people that she didn't want involved in it. So it could easily bring these people in. He's going to assert his Fifth Amendment and he's not going to have to respond. Or he still will respond, but he can put the case on pause. Kimmy Locker says, it'll take time for the civil cases to default, much less try to collect. So I just focus on the criminal defense in the meantime. I don't think he'll default because then that's going to bankrupt him for real. Okay. Because then they can just really ask for however much money they want. Like that one dude that filed against him, what he get like 20 something million dollars for no reason, or it was like $50 million for no reason. Stargazer Kawaii says, I do believe the other accusers have other names beyond Diddy. For sure. There were celebrities at that party, y'all. Kimmy Locker says, a Stargazer Kawaii, yeah, the attorney for the new 120 victims definitely said there's a lot of companies, banks, celebrities involved, and they said a lot of people did drop out of their CEO positions. That's what they saying. Zoe B says consent is null and void if the person is inebriated and or unconscious involuntarily. They're giving them the drugs, right? Involuntarily, especially, is when the consent is revoked. But I'm sure a defense attorney will badger and the witness on the stand to muddy that point. Exactly. They will. And the other thing that you have to remember about the one thing that you have to remember about civil cases is the burden of proof is different. It's not beyond a reasonable doubt. It's not 99%. It's by clear and convincing evidence, which is more like 75%. And so the more they can kind of put that doubt in there, and the juries are going to be a little bit more swayed than in a criminal case. Like you're not putting somebody in jail, you're talking about giving somebody money or not, right? They might be a little bit more swayed, especially if they view these people as party girls looking for clout, and you shouldn't have been doing that. You might get some people on the stand like, well, you put yourself in that situation and you want us to award you with money. So you might be dealing with jurors that's like that. Spicy Vet Med Geek says, so funny side story. My tattoo girl won first in the show and they gave her 1,000 loot packs as part of her prize. Help her hide them in the apprentice station. Okay, so she's almost a part of the Diddy crew, 1,000 loops. Stargazer Kawaii says, I'm surprised more people haven't been arrested. Have many people moved out of the country recently? I don't know. I don't know if they're moving out of the country, but I know they're dropping positions allegedly. Spicy Vet Med Geek says, if the Fed sees all his assets, can they sell them off and give the money to the plaintiff in the civil case? They can use it to pay restitution, but usually it'll be the victims in the criminal case. So I don't know how it necessarily transfers over if they have some extra money in the criminal case, but it'll go to pay his criminal fines for them having to prosecute this against him. Remember, because the state is bringing charges against you, but you have to pay them to sue you or to try to find you guilty. And then there might be a little bit left over for restitution for the victim. So yeah, because our Gaze Kawaii said we're at 52 likes. So yes, we did hit the like goal. So shout out to the BriHive for that. Okay, let's go ahead and hit our like goal. Let's see where we at. We are at 54 likes with 59 people watching live. So I know there's at least 6 people in the chat that hasn't hit the like button. So if you haven't hit the like button, please do. It does help us out in the algorithm, does help us get friends. And we're going to play our like goal animation for the newcomers. It does have a very loud sound in the beginning of the video. So if you are sensitive to loud sounds, this is your warning to turn down your volume. I'm going to play the like goal in 3, 2, 1. Because we reached our like goal of 50 likes for the live stream. But of course, you guys can continue to hit the like button and maybe we'll have a second like goal. If you guys think that we can reach a different like goal, we have the Baby Reindeer case to go through next, the order from the court. Let me know in the chat what you think the next like goal for the stream should be. So let me get my little life together so we can go ahead and jump into Baby Reindeer. But that's the end of Diddy. That's the end of Diddy for today. I'm not going to go like really into the 120 cases until we can get a little bit more information about it. We're going to jump right into Baby Reindeer. So let's have Bossy B bring us in. Wrong thing. I clicked the wrong button. This is live streaming. I'm sorry. Oh, I can't get it together. Anyways, we are jumping into the Baby Reindeer lawsuit. For those of you who are not familiar with the Baby Reindeer lawsuit, there is a guy named Richard Gadd that made a Netflix not a documentary, kind of a docuseries, not a docuseries either. He made a show on Netflix, basically playing himself, but giving himself a different name, basing his experience in life with an alleged stalker on a true story. The mistake that he made, or that Netflix made, because Richard Gadd is actually not the one being sued, it's Netflix that's actually being sued. The mistake that they made was put in, this is a true story at the very beginning of the series. And then they put in little disclaimer letters saying, oh, this has been fictionalized and is based on Gadd's opinion, blah, 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 blah. But you already put this is a true story in big letters at the beginning of the series. So what did people think when they watched the show? Martha, also known in real life as Fiona Harvey, is alleging that they thought it was a true story because you wrote that it was a true story at the beginning of the series. And then your little disclaimer, it doesn't matter anymore because in big letters, you put this is a true story, not this is based on a true story. This is fictionalized. This is dramatized. You didn't say any of that. You just said this is a true story. So Fiona Harvey, the real Martha, right, decided to sue Netflix for this lawsuit. Netflix says, no, court. You have to dismiss this under anti-SLAPP. We were talking about something of public interest and that benefits the public and that the plaintiff is not likely to succeed on her claims. Martha, also known as Fiona Harvey, says, no, court, you need to strike their motion to dismiss this because I can actually prove my case and I have pled facts sufficient enough to go forward with this. So, court, you have to dismiss their motion to strike and basically make them respond to the lawsuit. The court says, okay, fine and dandy. We are going to make a decision on the defendant's motion to strike and motion to dismiss. And then we're also going to make a decision on plaintiff's motion to strike the defendant's motion to strike and motion to dismiss. So the court took it under submission. They got declarations from Gad. They got declarations from Harvey. They got declarations from the Rays, who Harvey allegedly stalked back in the 2000s. They got declarations from everyone. And when we went over Richard Gad's declaration, one thing that we noticed is like, this sounds like you think it's a true story. I don't think your declaration is actually helping your case. And the court actually found the same thing. They found that Richard Gad's and Ray's declaration, the Rays, the attorneys that were being stalked by her in the 2000s that submitted their declarations on behalf of Netflix, they didn't really help the case, okay? Because you essentially are proving the fact that Fiona can prove that it is a true story, or at least Gad thinks it's a true story, and they didn't do enough to make it not a true story, essentially. So anyways, I know I just kind of over-explained that because reading it just pissed me off, because I'm like, Netflix, come on, bro. Do you just think you can get away with anything because you are Netflix? Anyways, let's see what the court says, because they do not dismiss her entire lawsuit, but they do dismiss a part of the lawsuit. And one thing that I find interesting about it is they don't really say if it's dismissed with prejudice or not. So I don't really know if she can bring the other claims back, but let's see what part of the lawsuit actually got dismissed for Fiona Harvey. And I think I did a pretty good recap of the case. So I'm not going to go ahead and go through this, the facts of the case, because we've been through it enough on this channel. If you've missed the previous live streams, I should link it down below. I will link it down below so that you can check out the other live streams regarding this Baby Reindeer case. And so the items of defamation that Fiona Harvey is claiming in this case are, drumroll please, these are the defamation statements. It states that Martha is a twice convicted criminal that spent 5 years in prison for stalking. We'll talk about why the court can find that to be defamation. It also states that Martha stalked a police officer. Again, we'll talk about why it could be considered defamation. It depicts Martha S.A. and Donnie in an alley grabbing his genitals without consent. More S.A., sorry, y'all. Trigger warnings again. It depicts Martha's violent attack. It depicts Martha violently attacking Donnie in a pub, smashing a glass bottle over his head and gouging his eyes with her thumbs. And it depicts Martha stalked Donnie by waiting outside of his home every day for 16 hours a day. So these are the statements and the depiction that Martha is claiming is libel, is defamation, is not true, and it was meant to be about Martha. Despite these differences, defendants, let me see, where was I at? Sorry, I want to get where I'm going. Okay, so that's the complaint. Okay. Sorry, y'all, I'm trying to figure out my spot here. Okay, so they asked for a special motion to strike it because there's no way you can basically find this to be defamation under anti-SLAPP. And the court wants to point out the defendant's facts that they kind of took into place and why they think that it's not defamation, because they basically changed the facts of the case. So in 1997, plaintiff Fiona Harvey was hired as a trainee solicitor at the law firm L&L Lawrence Solicitors under Laura Ray, a Scottish solicitor who was then married to a member of British Parliament. Ray terminated plaintiff's employment just a few weeks after hiring her. Consequently, plaintiff launched a harassment campaign against Ray and her family, sending threats, following them, and making false police reports against them. Plaintiff's harassment continued until April 29, 2002, when Ray obtained an interim interdict, which is essentially a restraining order prohibiting plaintiff from contacting her. Plaintiff's conduct got the attention of the media, leading to multiple news stories between 2000 and 2004. These news stories revealed that plaintiff had also stalked First Minister of Scotland, Donald Dewar. So remember, they're claiming that she stalked a police officer, but instead they submit a declaration where the Rays detail that they actually stalked them as lawyers. And that's why they're saying that it's not defamation, because she essentially did stalk people before, maybe not a police officer, but she did stalk someone before. Around 2014, plaintiff met Gad, who at the time was a struggling comedian working at a pub. Plaintiff almost immediately began stalking and harassing Gad. She learned a plaintiff's shift pattern so she could be at the pub while he was working, followed him around town, and attended many of his comedy and theater performances. She got handsy with him, pinching and touching various parts of his body, including his bum, without consent. And on one occasion, she got violent with him, shoving him in the back of his neck. And for years, she sent him countless emails, social media messages, voicemails, and handwritten letters. Plaintiff's harassment continued into 2017 when GAD obtained the first instant harassment warning. Again, both of these people technically got restraining orders against her. She got a harassment order with a warning with the GAD, and then she got a restraining order with the Rays, but she was not convicted. Defendants Netflix are arguing that this is substantially true because it was already pretty close. She kind of did the things, right? Plaintiff was never, and the court points out, plaintiff was never prosecuted or convicted of a crime for her conduct. However, according to Louise Michelle Oakley, a criminal lawyer who practices in England and Wales, plaintiff conduct towards Ray Dewar and Gad rose to a criminal level of stalking, likely punishable by 5 years of imprisonment. So essentially, what Netflix is arguing, although she wasn't arrested and she wasn't convicted, she could have been had we brought charges against her. No, that doesn't make it substantially true. Okay, if you would have put based on a true story, words matter, guys. Based on a true story, then maybe you could have succeeded in that claim. But putting this as a true story and that didn't actually happen, yeah. No. Okay. Then we have plaintiff's political activity. She was basically running for a nomination in the Scottish Parliament. I'm not going to really go through that. They go ahead and release the series, and then Harvey gets on the TV to say that she's the real Martha. Oh, why do I want to call her Martha Stewart? That's not who she is. She is not Martha Stewart. Okay. And we're getting into the anti-SLAPP. So let's just kind of review what anti-SLAPP is. Under California's Code of Civil Procedure, also known as anti-SLAPP, a defendant may file a special motion to strike a complaint that is brought primarily to chill a valid exercise of free speech and petition. Such motions may be brought in federal court against plaintiffs under plaintiffs' state law claims. So they're in federal court because of diversity jurisdiction, but they're in California, so they're bringing the anti-SLAPP, which is a state law, in the federal courts because of the jurisdiction issue, because she doesn't live in the United States. First, the defendant has the burden of showing that the challenge cause of action arises from activity protected under the statute. If the defendant does not meet the threshold burden, the court must deny the motion. If the defendant meets the burden, then the plaintiff must demonstrate a probability of prevailing on the merits of the claim. To establish the requisite probability of prevailing, the plaintiff must demonstrate both the claim is legally sufficient and that there is sufficient evidence to establish a prima facie case with respect to the claim. The court has to review the evidence most favorable to the plaintiff when it jumps to that section. The court goes on to discuss the plaintiff asserts causes of action for defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, negligence, gross negligence, violation of her right to publicity under California common law, and violation of her right to publicity under California Civil Code of Procedure. The defendants are moving to strike this because we are talking about a protected activity. The protective activity that they're claiming is basically SA and SH. It's something that the public is interested in and how people are able to either deal with the stories or get justice for their stories. So they're saying this is a case of public interest because it involves SA. The court determines that SA is something of public interest. So the defendants actually win on that part, that this is something of public interest and should be covered and should be protected speech. Okay. Now, it doesn't extend to all the way to defamation. Okay. So now the burden is going to then shift onto Fiona to prove that she could potentially prevail in her case for defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, negligent, all of the things that we just listed out. She has to then prove that she can actually prevail on the merits. And this is where it gets interesting to me from the court. And so for defamation, she has to prove a publication that is false, defamatory, unprivileged, and has a natural tendency to injure or cause special damages. The defamatory statement must specifically refer to or be of concerning the plaintiff. And this is where Netflix said there is no way that anyone would have known this was about Fiona had she not gone on Piers Morgan and told everybody that it was about her. And they also point out that the people that found Fiona was a specialized group of people that kind of did cyber sleuthing, is what the court refers to it as, in order to find her. But the court points out that they didn't really have to do much to find her. So let's see where they came up with that. Let's go ahead and remind ourselves of what the allegations are. Plaintiff asserts the claims of defamation alleging that defendants used Martha to make false statements about her. Specifically, plaintiff alleges that defendants falsely stated that plaintiff was a twice convicted criminal that spent 5 years in prison for stalking. She's saying that did not happen. She stalked a police officer. She's saying that did not happen. She SA'd Gad in the alley, grabbing his genitals without consent. She said that did not happen. Violently attacked Gad in the pub, smashing a glass bottle over his head and gouging his eyes with her thumbs, and then stalked Gad by waiting outside of his home for up to 16 hours a day. And she's saying none of those things happens. She argued that her claim has a probability of succeeding on the merits because all of the above statements were false, defamatory, unprivileged, harmed plaintiff's reputation, and caused her emotional distress. Defendants disagree, arguing that the claim fails because the statements are not about plaintiff, the statements are not assertions of fact, and the statements are substantially true. Plaintiff's libel proof, and the statements are legally protected opinion, and that plaintiff is a public figure and cannot establish actual malice, which the court's decision on actual malice was actually very interesting to me, and we're going to get into it in just a little bit. So one of, like I said, one of Netflix's main things is that they do not believe that reasonable people would believe the statements to be about Fiona Harvey because they didn't use her name, although they used everything else about her, right? So let's see what the court reasoned as to why they think that she is an ascertainable plaintiff. Defendants argue that a reasonable person would not understand that Martha is, in actual fact, plaintiff, such that any statement about Martha would be about plaintiff. In particular, defendants argue that the similarities between Martha and plaintiff are so broad that a reasonable person would not have been able to identify her. This is not the typical case. This is the court's opinion. This is not the typical case where plaintiff happens to be one of hundreds of people that match the fictional character's broad characteristics. Let's see. The court case they cited it was rejected defamation claim because the plaintiff's similarities to a fictional character of the same name were broadly applicable to many people. So this is not a situation where they just use the same name as Fiona. Like if they would have named the character Fiona, but she was not like the Fiona, then there might be a different outcome. But the court reasons, rather, Martha and plaintiff have specific similarities that few others could claim to share. Specifically, Martha and plaintiff are both Scottish lawyers living in London, 20 years older than Donnie/Gad, accused of stalking a lawyer in a newspaper article who communicated with Donnie/Gad on social media. While there may be numerous Scottish lawyers living in London of the same approximate age as plaintiff, it is very likely that only plaintiff has been accused of stalking a lawyer in a newspaper article while also communicating with Gad on social media. So they could have gotten away with the whole Scottish lawyer thing. But then when you bring up that she stalked a lawyer, maybe if they would have put something else, like maybe they tried the police officer, but they did the police officer and the lawyer, but she's not suing for the allegations that she stalked the lawyer and the other person of parliament. She's like, yeah, that's true. I did that. But I didn't stalk a police officer. I might have stalked a lawyer, but I did not stalk the police officer. So that's a lot. So the court's like, yeah, if they would have just stopped at the Scottish lawyer thing that was 20 years older than him, maybe they could succeed. But then when you start bringing up relevant things of her, like actually stalking a lawyer and also communicating with him on social media, and also the statement of hang my court curtains, Like all of that stuff ties into her, right? So let's see what else the court had to say. Nonetheless, defendants argue that even if the similarities were strong and specific, a reasonable person would not have identified plaintiff because it required research and cyber sleuthing, and these cyber sleuths are not representative of a reasonable person. However, plaintiff alleges that it required a little effort for these cyber sleuths to find her, and they simply found her public post on Gad's social media referencing the same "hang my curtains" joke featured in the series. Like I said during my initial live stream, maybe he should have made a different joke, like, "Hey, come make my bed." Maybe they would not be in this situation, right? Defendants do not offer any evidence to the contrary or provide any convincing argument as why this effort would be unreasonable, particularly given Gad's statement confirming that Martha was based on a real stalker, which could arguably be viewed as an invitation to find plaintiff. Thus, this argument fails. So the court finds that Netflix is wrong. Netflix is wrong here. We can find Fiona to be Martha, and that is what the court finds. And they said, from now on, we're going to refer to these statements to be about plaintiff because the court can find that these statements were actually about Martha. Okay. Assertions of fact. Whether a statement may be perceived as a factual assertion depends on the totality of circumstances made. Courts consider three factors: the statement in a broad context, which includes the general tenure of the entire work, the subject of the statement, the setting and the format of the work, the specific context and content of the statements, analyzing the extent of figurative and hyperbolic language used, and the reasonable expectation of the audience in that particular situation, and whether the statement itself is sufficiently factual to be susceptible to being proved true or false. As to the second factor, dramatic devices may demonstrate that a statement is not an assertion of fact. For instance, drawing upon California law found that a theatrical play based on a historical fiction did not contain assertions of fact because it used dramatic, borderline fantastical elements. Essentially, in this case, they used like an animated lion, versus in this case, let's see what happens, what the court thinks. Defendants argue that a reasonable person would not understand the statements about plaintiff to be assertions of fact. Specifically, defendants argue that a reasonable person would understand from context that the alleged statements are not factual because the series uses dramatic cinematic elements like tonally dissonant soundtracks, literal tunnel vision, time lapses, and montages. The court does not agree with Netflix here. Each of the factors suggests that the statements would be interpreted as assertions of facts. First, while the statements were made in a series that largely has the trappings of Black comedy drama, the very first episode states unequivocally, what did we talk about in the first live stream about this? Unequivocally, that this is a true story. Not based on a true story, it is a true story, thereby inviting the audience to accept the statements as fact. Second, while the series uses some dramatic cinematic elements, these elements are not absurd or surreal as to neutralize the audience's expectation that they were watching a true story. Indeed, these dramatic devices are far tamer than a fantastical use of stuffed tigers, absurdist poetry, and ghosts in the previous case. Third, the statements are sufficiently factual to be susceptible of being proved true or false. Whether plaintiff was convicted, stalked a police officer, sexually assaulted Gad, violently attacked him, or waited outside of his home are all provable assertions. Under the totality of the circumstances, a reasonable person could interpret the statements to be assertions of fact. Thus, the argument fails. So the court not only finds that we can ascertain Fiona to be Martha, but also that the statements are assertions of fact. They can be proven to be true or false. Remember when we covered Samantha Markle versus Meghan Markle? She said she grew up as an only child. That's an opinion. I didn't grow up with you, right? Those are opinions. Whether this girl was arrested, we can prove that. We go down to the courthouse, and maybe not the courthouse, but you go down to the police department and find out if she was arrested or not, right? So the statements that Netflix made are definitely more fact. I agree with that. Substantial truth. Substantial truth is a defense to defamation under the defense if the substance, gist, or sting of the alleged defamatory statements are true. The defendant cannot be held liable for any slight inaccuracies of the details. Defendants argue excuse me. Defendants argue that plaintiff's claim fails because the statements about plaintiff are substantially true. Specifically, defendants offer evidence and this is where the court had the sass for me. And this is where I said those declarations backfired on Netflix. They thought they were proving their case by saying these are substantially true, but also it's based on fiction. It's not real. You're telling me it's true, but then you're telling me it's real. So it's true, but it's not real, right? It's not about her. It's not real. And this is why it's not about her and it's not real, but it's also substantially true. Your arguments are contradictory, okay? Those statements from Gad and Ray did not help your case. And the court says, for these reasons, although plaintiff is not a twice convicted criminal that spent 5 years in prison, I'm sorry, this is the defendant's arguments. Although plaintiff is not a twice convicted criminal that spent 5 years in prison for stalking, she could have been convicted and sentenced to 5 years in prison for stalking Ray, Durar, and Gad. Could have, what my mom always says, she says, almost don't count. Almost don't count. She could have been convicted versus she is convicted. Two different things here. Okay. Second, the defendants argue, although plaintiff did not stalk a police officer, she did previously stalk Ray, an attorney, her husband, a member of British Parliament, Dewar, and the First Minister of Scotland. She didn't contest those. Those were also alleged in the series as well. She said those are true, but I didn't stalk a police officer. Okay? You can't say it's substantially true. You're just basically saying I stalk everybody at this point. Defendants also argue, Netflix argues, although plaintiff did not sexually assault Gad in an alley, grabbing his genitals without consent, she did get handsy, in quotation marks, with him, pinching and touching various parts of his body, including his bum, without consent. Although plaintiff did not smash a glass bottle over Gad's head and gouge his eyes with her thumbs, she did shove him in the back of the neck. And although plaintiff did not wait outside Gad's home every day for up to 16 hours, so you're admitting to everything. You're admitting that everything is a lie. Netflix, you better settle. You better freaking settle. Although plaintiff did not wait outside Gad's home every day for up to 16 hours a day, she did follow him to the pub and his comedy and theater performances. However, even assuming this evidence to be true, the court disagrees that defendant's statement would be substantially true. For instance, there is a major difference between stalking and being convicted of stalking in a court of law. Likewise, there is a major difference between inappropriate touching and SA, as well as between shoving and gouging another's eyes. While plaintiff's purported actions are reprehensible, the court does not agree she was right for doing this crazy stuff, okay? The court is not saying she's right. But the defendant's statements are of a worse degree and could produce a different effect on the mind of a viewer. Thus, the argument also fails. So, although Fiona may not be the best person, she didn't do as bad as you're claiming. She wasn't actually convicted, okay? She didn't stalk a police officer, okay? All of these things, while bad, what you're saying she did is worse. For your dramatic effect, it's worse, okay? So that doesn't really help your argument. Like I said, it sounds to me like they are trying to make it a true story based on the declarations that they submitted to the court. As soon as I read it, I was like, no. Why? The true story thing and those declarations screwed Netflix over. For sure, screwed them over. They're claiming that she's a libel-proof person. Essentially, the court says that the California law doesn't even follow that. So basically, what are y'all talking about? And plus, even if the court did decide to apply that standard, the courts usually find that no one's reputation is so tarnished to the fact that they could be, if you accuse them of stalking on a different level, that it wouldn't tarnish their reputation even worse. And in this particular case, the alleged the stalking of Ray and her husband and all of the other people, that happened in the early 2000s. Now we're in 2020, 20 years later. You can't say just because her reputation was tarnished against those lawyers 20 years ago doesn't mean it's still tarnished today. So that's what they end up finding that, no, we don't agree with you. She's not libel proof. Okay. She is not libel proof. And so let's move on to the next thing. I just didn't want to read all of that just to get to that point. And then going for legally protected opinion, the defendant's Netflix claim that these statements are opinions. We already talked about why they're fact. You can prove them, right? This is not an opinion at all. This is more along the lines of fact. Okay, so even if the elements of defamations are satisfied, a defamation claim may nonetheless fail if it is barred by the First Amendment. Libel can be a claim of talismanic immunity from the constitutional limitations. It must be measured by standards that satisfy the First Amendment. One restriction imposed by the First Amendment applies to legally protected opinion. When an author writing about a controversial occurrence fairly describes the general events involved and offers his personal perspective about the same of its ambiguities and disputed facts, his statement should generally be protected by the First Amendment. Defendants argue that the statements are legally protected opinion under the First Amendment. Specifically, defendants argue that the series is clearly written from Gad's perspective and states Gad's opinion. The court disagrees. It is not clear that the series states only Gad's opinions. If anything, the series appears to present itself as fact, not opinion, by stating this is a true story. They're going to stick to that one. They are going to stick to that one. Y'all should have never did that. And there are allegations that Gad, the writer of the show, actually pushed back on saying it is a true story, but actually saying, hey, we should really it's based on a true story, but Netflix decided to put this as a true story anyways. So I'm actually happy that Richard Gad is not being sued, because Netflix ultimately, according to what the court has already found to be fact, it was Netflix that ultimately decided to still use this is a true story versus based on a true story. This argument also fails. The other thing that I wanted to point out about the First Amendment protection, I wonder why they didn't argue. I wonder why they didn't. What's another word? Also, why can I not think of the word also? I wonder why they did not also allege that this was an artistic work under the First Amendment for protection. They just did the legally protected opinion and then a libel proof. I think they could have also argued that this was artistic, kind of like the Lizzo case, where her performance was a little risque, but it was protected because it was part of the show. She can pick who she wants. She can pick the outfits that she wants. She can kind of direct her show in the way that she wanted to. I wonder why they didn't bring up that argument. Maybe I don't all the way understand what that argument is, but I think it was something that could have been brought up under an artistic portrayal versus just my opinion or whatever it is. Unless that is the rule they were trying to get to, but they didn't really pull it together all the way. Public figure and actual malice. Another restriction imposed by the First Amendment applies to public figures. Public figures may only bring claims for defamation if they can show that the defamatory statement was made with actual malice. Defendants argue that plaintiffs qualify as a public figure and thus must demonstrate actual malice. The court first considers whether you are a limited purpose public figure or an all-purpose public figure. The court basically found that if you are running for the government, you are an all-purpose public figure, and that just because she was kind of secretive about her running for, I think it was like an anonymous or something, she was running for, I forget what it is, and I can't find it that quickly. But the way that she ran, a private nomination, that's what it was. Just because she was running for a private nomination does not necessarily mean that she's still not a public figure. So the court found that she can be found to be a public figure, and thus she needs to prove actual malice if she is a public figure. But again, they point to, let me see, where is it? With actual malice, she can't prove it. The defendants argue that plaintiff cannot show actual malice. The court disagrees. The series was adapted from Gad's theater play, which stated that it was based on a true story. And this is what I was talking about earlier, but I couldn't get my words together. This disclaimer put defendants on notice that certain details were likely false. Yet, according to Sunday Times, defendant insisted on adding the this is a true storyline to the series despite Gad's concern. This suggests a reckless disregard of whether statements in the series were false and thus actual malice. Thus, the argument also fails. And again, they also asserted that Gad wanted to put based on a true story, but Netflix ultimately decided to put this as a true story. Because the defendant's attempts to defeat the defamation claim failed, plaintiff has demonstrated that the claim has a probability of prevailing on the merits. Accordingly, the court denies defendant's special motion to strike as to the defamation claim. And then the court goes on to say that the defendants, Netflix, never really gave us any indication on why they think all the other claims should be stricken because of anti-slap. So they basically said those ones also survive, and they deny their claim on that because Netflix didn't give any reasoning as to why they should succeed on getting these other ones dismissed under the same anti-slap statute, because they thought since they got defamation dismissed, then all the other claims have to be dismissed too because it's based on the same facts and elements. And the court said no, you had to make arguments for each and every one of them. But they also did a motion to dismiss for failure to state a claim. As far as the defamation go, the court basically found that as expressed above, she has stated a claim for defamation and it can be proven to be true. But when it came to IIED, the plaintiff must allege that the defendant engaged in extreme and outrageous conduct with the intention of causing or reckless disregard of the probability of causing emotional distress, severe or extreme emotional distress, and causation. And a defendant's conduct is outrageous when it is so extreme as to exceed all bounds of the usually tolerated in civilized community, and the defendant's conduct must be intended to inflict injury or engage in with the realization that injury will result. Court says, plaintiff asserts a claim of IIED alleging that defendants' allegedly defamatory statements were extreme and outrageous and caused her severe and extreme emotional distress. Defendants argue that the claim fails because no reasonable viewer would understand the statements about Martha to be about plaintiff. The statements were not so damaging as to be outrageous. To the extent that plaintiff alleges defendants failed to investigate the accuracy of the statements, the failure is not extreme and outrageous. Plaintiff's own conduct is the cause of her emotional distress because she identified herself as the real Martha. Plaintiff has not suffered any actual emotional distress, as her allegation that she is afraid to go outside is contradicted by her decision to sit for an interview. The court straight up says the defendants missed the mark. You got it wrong, Netflix. And they have a big paragraph for why they think Netflix got it wrong. Oh, I'm talking too much. I feel like I'm talking too much, but we are on a live stream. So this is what happens when you're on live stream, right? Okay, so the court says, first, as explained above, it appears that a reasonable viewer could understand the statements about Martha to be about plaintiff. Second, the statements may be extreme and outrageous. The series states that plaintiff is a convicted criminal who SA'd and violently assaulted Gad. These statements may rise to a level of extreme and outrageous conduct. It may arise. They're not finding it, but it could get there. Third, defendant cites no convincing authority, suggesting that their failure to investigate the accuracy of the statements would not be extreme and outrageous. While defendants' cases found that failures to investigate insurance claim and workplace complaints were not extreme and outrageous, they do not state that all failures to investigate are per se not extreme and outrageous. Fourth, plaintiff alleges that she was identified and suffered harm before she made public statements identifying herself as Martha. To the extent that plaintiff's statements afterward might have led to more harm, defendants offer no authority suggesting that plaintiff contributing conduct would outright bar her claim. And fifth, while plaintiff's decision to sit for an interview arguably contradicts her allegation that she is afraid to go outside, she also alleges that she has suffered anxiety, nightmares, panic attacks, shame, depression, nervousness, stomach pains, and loss of appetite. Defendants offer no argument that these allegations are implausible or not credible. Thus, the court denies defendants' motion to dismiss as an IIED claim. Now, what is the court saying? Netflix, you didn't finish your motion. You didn't finish your motion, dude. You want me to dismiss things, but you're not giving me reason and why. You're not giving me authority. Why? She might not be afraid to go outside, but maybe she did get nervous. Maybe she does have depression. Maybe she does have stomach pains. Maybe she does have loss of appetite. You didn't tell me that any of those things were not credible because you saw her eating that red lobster last night. I don't know what you would say, but you didn't address any of those things. So you not only did you not address that, you didn't even address the anti-slap stuff for all the other claims up above. So the defamation is sticking and the intentional infliction of emotional distress is sticking for the failure to state a claim. Negligence and gross negligence. Plaintiff claims, here we go. Plaintiff asserts claims for negligence and gross negligence, alleging that defendants breach duties to accurately represent her, investigate the accuracy of statements about her, and take measures to prevent viewers from identifying her. Defendants argue that these claims fail because they are largely duplicative of her defamation claim. The court agrees with defendants. Finally, the court is in agreement with the defendants. Well, I guess they agreed with them on the public figure thing. So they agree with them twice now. Plaintiff's allegations with respect to the duty, largely mirror her defamation claim. In this matter, plaintiff essentially alleges that defendant owed a duty not to defame her. However, plaintiff offers no authority suggesting that she can bring a defamation claim and a negligent claim premised on a defamation claim. Indeed, multiple courts have rejected such negligent claims as duplicative. So those ones are going to be done, or they're going to grant Netflix's motion to get rid of the negligent claims. Same thing with the right to publicity. She is claiming that she basically had a right to tell this story herself. The court says plaintiff asserts a claim for violation of her right to publicity under California common law. Defendants argue that this claim fails because plaintiff does not allege that defendants use her identity to the advantage for advertising. The court agrees with defendants, so they agree with defendants again, and I agree with that too. I don't think there's any right to publicity here, and we talked about that in the previous streams. Plaintiff does not allege that she is famous, such that defendants would stand to gain by using her identity. Thus, she fails to adequately allege a right to publicity claim under California common law or California Civil Code of Procedure 33244. So the court grants the motion to dismiss on the publicity claims. And then for punitive damages, she does not. Plaintiff includes a prayer for punitive damages in her complaint, asserting that defendants acted with oppression, fraud, and malice. Defendants argue that this prayer fails because plaintiff does not provide any factual allegations to support her assertions. Plaintiff does not dispute this. Instead, plaintiff argues that defendant's motion is improper because, according to her, Rule 12b-6 only allows parties to dismiss claim, not prayers for a relief. Plaintiff misses the mark. So the court called out both parties for missing the mark. As this court recently explained, Rule 12b-6 is the proper medium for challenging the sufficiency of factual allegations underlying a prayer for punitive damages. Having failed to identify any factual allegations showing oppression, fraud, or malice, plaintiff's prayer for punitive damages fails. Thus, the court grants the motion to dismiss. So, in all, for the foregoing, the court denies plaintiff's motion to strike in general, denies defendant's special motion to strike, and grants the. Why can I not read right now? They deny defendant's special motion to strike and grants defendant's motion to dismiss in part. Specifically, the court dismisses plaintiff's negligence, gross negligence, common law right of publicity, and California Civil Code 3344 right of publicity claims, as well as her prayer for punitive damages. So Netflix is not going to be punished with punitive damages here, but she can still get compensatory damages when it comes to the defamation claim. So she'll probably get some money, but it probably won't be a lot of money. Plaintiff's defamation and IIED claims survive. So essentially, she had 6 causes of action, And now she is down to 2. She has a defamation claim and she has a IIED claim. In order to prove those, she has to prove that she lost some type of money. So she might be in a situation where she's only getting nominal damages of $1, or if she's been going to like a psychologist and a mental health therapist and all of that stuff and incurring all of these fees, then she can be compensated for that. If she hasn't been able to work because of the allegations made against her, then she can be compensated for that. But we are not looking at that $200 million that she was initially suing for, because her biggest claim for money, the punitive damages of Netflix doing something actually wrong, that got dismissed. You don't get the punitive damages, so you can get compensatory damages. And that could easily be like $100,000. They may give it to her and make it go away. So I don't see there being an issue with getting a settlement. The thing that I have about this, the problem that I have with this order in particular, though, is the court doesn't tell us whether they're dismissed with prejudice or without prejudice. So I don't know if she can bring them back, because the court didn't tell us whether or not she can bring the claims back. But the defamation in the IIED is going forward. I think she will be happy with those 2 claims to where she won't try to bring the other ones back. But like I said, the court doesn't really say if it's dismissed with prejudice or not. So there we have that. Let me know what y'all think about this order in the chat. I know I had a hard time getting through it, but hopefully y'all understood what I was putting down. I don't know what it is. Like at the end of the day, I do this like late live stream because I work during the day and then I can't read. I can't read by the end of the live stream. Okay, Zoe B says, who reads big letters on a screen before a show anyways? That's what they're thinking. We all just skipped the intro, so we didn't see it, right? But we're going to read the tiny little disclaimer at the bottom of the show with all the dark. Y'all, I forgot to tell y'all, I did start the series. I have not finished it. I didn't like it. I really didn't like it. It was hard to follow for me, and maybe it's because I was walking on the treadmill at the same time. I didn't like it. I didn't like the show. Let me know what y'all think about the show, though. Zoe B says, a thread and a needle. This is a true story versus their truth to the story versus this is based on a true story. Similarity different. Yeah, but that based, it saves you. It saves you every time, because that gives you the, this is my opinion, but I kind of stretched the truth a little bit. Or even if they would have put the disclaimer a little bit bigger, like when you watch those reenactments of like true crime and they have a whole screen that flashes and said, this has been dramatized and names have been changed. It has been changed for dramatic effects. They didn't do that. They did not do that. Okay. Stargazer says they should have fought for charges. They should have fought for What do you mean? Charges of what? Phoenix Waller says, Martha, I shot the sheriff, but I did not shoot the deputy. Yeah. Yeah. And see, no, if she would have stalked the deputy and he said a sheriff, that would be substantially true. But what they're saying is, I stalked the lawyer, or she stalked the lawyer, so she must have also stalked the police officer, right? And that didn't happen. That's too far off. They might have said a sheriff, a police officer, a deputy. They could have used all of those kind of interchangeable words. Y'all know, I know sheriffs probably don't want to be the same as police officers. I don't know how much beefed up they are about those titles, but she stalked a lawyer and a member of British Parliament and all of that. It's too far off. So, but yeah, I could see her saying that. Gimme Lockett says to Phoenix Waller, that song gonna be stuck in my head now. Oh, I didn't know that was a song. A Stargazer Kawaii says, I'm not surprised the court found there was enough evidence for people to track her down. They did. She just didn't deny that it was her. And she had no responsibility to deny that it was her. The other thing about it too, y'all, is they tracked her down easy. Like, they found her so fast, it was not even funny. Right? Like, and they use the same joke. Like I said, maybe if they would have put, oh, I need help making my bed, maybe he would have had an argument. But like the hanging the curtains thing, and then to constantly keep saying, I'll hang your curtains, or whatever the little joke was. You kind of set yourself up for that, Netflix. You did. Like, change the words a little bit. Change it a little bit. Kimmy Locker says to Stargazer Kawaii, yeah, like the court said, some of the examples they used were super specific. They were. Like they said, they may have gotten away with a Scottish lawyer in the 40 or 20 years older than Gad, I'm assuming in the 40s. But I think she said she was in her 40s in the show. But then you add her stalking specific people. Yeah, that's a little bit too close for comfort. Kimmy Locker says almost doesn't count except in horseshoes and hand grenades. Yep. Oh, I didn't know that was the rest of it. I will be honest, Black people, they be changing the sayings. They change the colloquials, okay? It's never what it was meant to be by the time it get through Black people. It's like a game of telephone. all my mom said is almost don't count. I never heard the horseshoes and hand grenades part. Phoenix Wallace says, LOL OMG. Martha, get your facts straight. I didn't do the horrible things you claim. I did these other horrible things. Exactly. And the court agrees. It's like, yeah, she sucks, but y'all made her suckier. So, problems here. That creates problems that could potentially be libelous. And like I said, they're not finding that it is libelous. Like they can go to court and say, okay, well, that's not that bad. They definitely could. But this ruling makes me believe that Netflix is going to be a little bit more motivated to settle because they have to go to this judge for trial. Stargazer Kawaii says he doesn't help stalking victims by embellishing his experience. I myself had a stalker at one point and would never lie about it for clout. And so his argument wasn't the stalker part, it was the SA part of it. And again, she didn't even SA him to the extent that he's putting in the show. And that's the court's problem. Yes, she sucks, but you made it seem like she sucks more. If that makes sense. Phoenix Wallace says multi-purpose public figure, though we liked the ones that when EGOT. I feel like I know what that is, but I don't know what it is. Is that something about Game of Thrones? Help me in the chat. I don't know. Stargazer Kawaii says, I do wonder how much she was contacted before her first interview. They were like messaging her, like in the complaint, they were messaging her like on Twitter and telling her to unalive herself and telling her she's a bad person. And then she went on the show and said, yes, that's me, but I didn't do those things. Kimmy Locker says to Stargazer Kawaii, yeah, it definitely seems like the story is in effect to me because I bet internet sleuths are a pretty small portion of the general public. Yeah, now definitely more people definitely know about it. That's for sure. But it's always, a certain corner of the internet. And if you're the one being attacked, it's going to seem a lot bigger to you than it does to like me and you that never heard about it before. Same thing with this channel in general. If you're not on the corner of LawTube and lawyers talking about cases on YouTube, no one knows what the heck is going on in these cases until they find us on YouTube, right? But in our world, this Diddy case is big. There's probably people in Antarctica that never heard about these cases. So I think that she was being attacked enough to where a reasonable person would be like, okay, this is too much, right? My feelings get hurt when I get one negative comment left on my video. People tell me I'm not a real lawyer all the time. And I mean, I'm kind of mean back, but that's okay. But if people were coming to my video 1,000,000 at a time or even 100 at a time telling me I wasn't a real lawyer, that would start to hurt my feelings, right? I would start to feel bad about that. But yeah, I hope that makes sense. I don't know where I'm going with that. Stargazer Kawaii says, I was saying if he had enough evidence to press charges on her, he should have, instead of lying about her having been convicted in the TV show. I agree with that. If she was stalking you to that level, you should have pressed charges on her. My thing is, I think he was thinking could have, would have, should have. And that's why when he did his show in his stand-up, he said based on a true story, because maybe he wished he would have done it. And because he thinks that had he done it, she would have been convicted. I can definitely understand that from his perspective. Rachel Mills says to Stargazer Kawaii, stalking charges without actual physical violence is hard to press charges. Yeah, that is true too in the criminal case, but they are in a different country, so maybe it's a little bit different. Phoenix Waller says to Stargazer Kawaii, I wonder if there might be a misogynist element to him not pressing charges, just like other male victims of SA often don't come forward because it emasculates them. And yeah, and he did bring that point up in the show to the point where I brought up is like I was embarrassed to bring it because it's like I'm a man and this little lady is stalking me, right? Rachel Mills says women live in fear because of this often. That is true. That is true because people will just stalk you and not come close enough, right? Oh, I was all the way off. I was so off. Phoenix Wallace says EGOT means Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, Tony, all of the big entertainment awards. Very few can get them all. I was like, is that something about Game of Thrones? This is embarrassing. See, we get on the internet, we embarrass ourselves. She got on the internet, embarrassed herself about the curtains. And I'm talking about Game of Thrones when you talk about Emmys, Grammys, Oscars, and Tonys. The embarrassment. The embarrassment. Stargazer Kawaii says the 1,000 baby oil bottles heard from around the world. Precisely. I'm about to get out to wrap this thing up, so let me know if y'all got any other chats y'all want to drop. Rachel Mills says the only thing that you can do sometimes is get a restraining order. I had something like this happen where I went to school and work. Yeah, you can get a restraining order. The charges part can be harder, but he did end up getting the harassment, kind of like a restraining order. He did end up getting that. So, but he said she was grabbing on him. I wonder if that would have been enough for him. I don't know. But anyways, y'all, that is all that I have for the live stream. It was completely ridiculous. I feel like I'm going to have a great weekend and I'm going to wake up on Monday and there's going to be another lawsuit filed against Diddy. Okay. There's going to be another lawsuit filed against Diddy, or there might be 120. There might be 120 lawsuits filed against Diddy on Monday. No, I think that they're going to give the other big names time to come in and try to clear their names. So maybe it won't be Monday. Maybe it won't be Tuesday. Maybe it'll be a couple of weeks from now because I do think that they're going to try to get some of the cases settled down. And I wonder if it's excuse me. I wonder if it's more than 120 cases and they're just saying 120 because they know some of them are going to end up settling out before they actually file them. But all I know is those law firms are making a lot of money drafting up all these complaints, but they could be really copy and paste because like I said, Diddy for sure has a MO in this. He has an MO in this. Pretty much all of the allegations are so similar that if they are filing that many lawsuits, it's not going to be much that they have to change, maybe years, maybe dates, but it sounds like he's doing the same thing to all the people. I forgot to also mention earlier on why they are not doing this as class actions. I think someone asked that in the last live stream. It can't be a class action because it all didn't happen to them all at once, unless it's like one of the individual sex parties at this sex party. He gave everybody ketamine all in one room. Then you can start creating classes of people. But remember, you need 35 people that experienced all the same thing or classes of the same thing. So the same party, they were all at the July 4th party of this year. And this is what he did during the party. And then this is what he did over here in the party. But if the MO is just the same, it's not really the same lawsuit. So that's why we're not seeing a class action here. We're seeing individual lawsuits because they all probably have, although they might be similar facts, they all are going to have different facts, different times, and not all in the same room, everything that comes into play. Okay. And then for Baby Reindeer, it's going to go forward. We thought that it was going to be dismissed, but also once I saw that declaration that Richard Gadd put out, and I didn't read the Ray's declaration, but apparently that one screwed them over too. And the whole true story stuff in the complaint, I think, screwed them over. When they brought up the little disclaimer they had, I was like, okay, the disclaimer makes sense. But I also did watch a couple of the episodes and I didn't see the disclaimer. I'm not gonna lie, I did not see the disclaimers. I don't remember the disclaimers. But what I do remember is this is a true story, okay? Anyways, I hope everyone had a wonderful weekend. I hope you guys enjoyed the live stream. And if you haven't already, please do hit the like like button. If you're not subscribed, please do subscribe. It definitely helps out this channel. And like I said, we're on a goal to grow this channel. So all the help, the likes, the subscribes, they're free. And all of it helps the channel. I appreciate y'all so much. Shout out to Deacon Fatal, who was the MVP of the live stream. Gift and 5 Boss Attorney Breed membership. Welcome to all the new members. Welcome to the new subscribers. Welcome to the people that came over from Kurt's channel. Like I said, hope everyone has a good weekend, and I will see y'all all on the next live stream.